Thank you. Great to be here. And I'm really pleased to introduce our next guest, who's going to come on stage and do a bit of an interview with me. And he is a marketing legend. He is currently the Chief Marketing Officer of Samsung Electronics America. I actually originally knew him from my days at Unilever, where he was a mentor of mine. But a few facts about Marc before he joins us, and we'll roll some video of some recent work he's done. Marc has been ranked the 6th most influential CMO by Forbes in 2017. He has an illustrious history, currently working at Samsung, previously at Unilever and at Coca-Cola. He is known for developing talent, for driving digital innovation, and for humanizing large global brands. He is famous for his open happiness work, as well as the Coke Side of Life campaign. But at YouTube, we're particularly thrilled with the work he's recently done, the Do What You Can't campaign. And before Marc comes to the stage, I'd love us to roll the video so we can take a look at some of his recent work.
Hi, Debbie.
Hello, Marc. Good to see you. All right, so that is an amazing campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about where that idea came from?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, and I'm lucky because in a certain way, working, having worked in Coca-Cola, Unilever, coming into Samsung as a company, the reality, and this is where technology can really, change and enhance human experience. It says in this video, all you need is a phone, a connection signal, and a good idea. And this insight that comes from the video as well is that 1 out of 3 people, teenagers, that's a UK statistic, aspire to be a YouTuber or an Instagrammer or whatever, like to be a creator, maker, to impact the world. Yes. Absolutely. So the reality is out of these insights, and I always say marketing, used to be about creating a myth and telling it, and now it's finding a truth and sharing it. And the truth is that, this is what this generation is using to make their mark on the world. And because of technology, they can actually create, they can share, they can experience content that actually enable them to be their brand. And so this is really how we said, as we wanted to launch this campaign, Do What You Can't, we said, well, at the end of the day, we make the products, that couldn't be done yesterday, and that's one of our internal motto. We make the products that can't be made, so that people, you, can do the things that can't be done. So the things you couldn't do yesterday, and today, again, with a phone, a connection signal, and a good idea, you can change the world, and you can have an audience, and so that's where the whole idea came on. We partnered with Casey Neistat very early on for the initial work that we did on the creators program, but it's much more than just Casey. We love Casey because when it comes to Do What You Can't, I mean, he kind of like embodies the brand, but it's more for his creative genius and his attitude to life and the mark he makes himself on the world. And so we partnered afterwards with several other creators, and our ambition is indeed to inspire as many people and empower as many people to actually use technology, our technology, to make their mark.
Yeah. And is that what humanizing technology, is that what that campaign is?
Well, it is really, instead of talking about just the products and the features of the devices, it is about talking about, and I always prefer to do that, the people who use those products and those features. And I've always, going back to my Coke days at Unilever, always been about putting the people at the center. I actually rarely say consumers without adding who are people too.
Yeah.
But the reality, this idea of putting people at the center of even our marketing, and marketing, the people that uses our technology and the impact they create on the world. So this year, when we did a new episode of this campaign after the Casey launch that we had about 2 years ago at the Oscars, this year we embraced multiple directors, creators, and makers, and even directors. Issa Rae was one of them. And what we did, we asked each of them to create, in addition to the overall piece of content, to create their own piece of content, not talking about our device, but talking about their projects, what they were passionate about.
Yeah, interesting. Amazing. So Obviously, this piece of work comes at the as part of a long series of kind of marketing experiences that you've had. I wanted to pan the camera back a little bit and talk about some of the changes that you've seen as a CMO and in marketing, the advent of digital and the rise of data, and what are some of the changes that you've seen in the way marketing is done over the years you've been working?
Yeah, I think we see, and there is a reason why, a lot of the top brands today are tech brands. It's because we see a very different way of brands being built in people's mind. Before, you kind of like advertise the brand, made the product available, and that was your job. Today, if you think about it, people build brands, therefore we need to build brands too, by engaging them almost on micro engagement multiple times a day, but on their terms. So this is why, Google, sorry to pick a brand, but it's such an amazing brand because if you think about Gmail, search, maps, I mean, it's very difficult to go through a day without, using, one of the Google, sub-brands. And so at the end of the day, that's how we build a brand. But the beauty is, Google is not saying, buy me or use me. Google is just saying, I'm here, use me when you need me. And so it's all about building utility, serving people, as opposed to just selling people. And I really think that this idea of selling by serving, as opposed to just, marketing and selling, is absolutely a critical evolution, as well as using technology to engage multiple times with people, so those micro interaction, but on people's term. And that's the important part. It needs to make sure that it puts people at the center, it serves people's interests, and that's essential. Yeah,
and what are some examples of it's on a consumer's terms or people's terms? What does that look like? Is that like skippable ads or
to me, I mean,
ads,
one of the things that I'm a huge believer, coming about that, and I started to hear in the industry. I go to a TED conference every year, and I've seen, over the last decade, the evolution of the trends, what's trending. 2 years ago, there was at least half a dozen TED Talks in TED in Vancouver, which were talking about the relationship we have with our technology, and starting to say, maybe too much is too much. And that led us to actually say, how do we think about the well-being, the digital well-being of people powered by technology? And this is really where, it's a combination of, because of how the internet was constructed, it's really a combination of the hardware, the platforms, and the marketers, the ads that are in the whole ecosystem. When the internet was created, it was just supposed to serve us, but none of the products, none of the platforms, none of the marketing tools, that are available to us were available. So that led us to say, how do we do something? We partnered with Arianna Huffington, who had created her new company called Thrive, and I told Arianna, there's got to be a technology part to that. And so we worked with her to create the Thrive app, which was, I think, the first digital well-being solution to be embedded into a device. So with this Thrive app, you can put your phone on Thrive mode and not to be disturbed or tempted for as long as you had chosen to, 20 minutes, an hour, and so on. You can take micro steps to actually, learn to use your devices better. But it also gives you feedback on how you use all your apps, and actually whether you do want, after 75 minutes on a specific, even if it's emails, which then it tells you, do you really want to do more emails today, or do you want to put a stop? And so Google, announced at their I/O conference a whole digital, I think you call it digital wellness solution. I had a panel yesterday, actually, on the innovation stage together with Susan Wojcinski, and we talked about digital well-being, digital wellness together, and that was fascinating. And then Apple launched about 2 or 3 weeks ago, at least announced, that they're going to come up with what I think they call screen time and some app management systems. And so I'm thrilled because, believe me, at the very beginning, when I started to talk, at least internally, about doing something to tell people when they shouldn't be using their devices, I was wondering how popular I was going to be.
Yeah. Yes, so let's talk a little bit about that, doing brave work that's maybe counterintuitive to some people. Do you have any advice for the audience based on your experiences of how have you convinced others to do things that seem a little crazy?
Well, I do think that I've been lucky because, before Samsung, being at Unilever has embraced, as sustainability as really a platform to really, intersect with business. And that's brave because it's not easy. I mean, people say that they want more sustainable products, but when you ask them to vote with their wallet, they actually don't behave the way they talk. So that's brave work. But in general, I do think that it's always essential to have some convictions. I think especially the more you grow in a position in an organization, the more it's not just about the skills you have, but also the choices you make in a certain way. And I certainly personally chose to drive that conversation about digital well-being and to drive the collaboration between again, the hardware manufacturer, the platforms, and the marketers and advertisers. And I've had several conversations here with lots of people in the industry to actually drive that forward and turn it into kind of like a different way of thinking about our industry and some kind of a ethical responsibility to the lens of our industry. And the last thing I'd say, which is a filter I wouldn't say I've had it throughout my career, but I've had it at least since the Coca-Cola day, which is maybe sounds like a catchphrase, but personally, one of the things I would encourage everybody to think about if you want to do brave work is to think, I'd rather be fired for what I did than for what I didn't do.
Nice.
And I think it's a mindset of saying there's certain things you need to, not necessarily always ask for permission, or if you do, you need to have very strong conviction to make sure that you don't give up.
Yeah, wow, that's great. Well, I think that's a great note to close us out on. Let's all hope we get fired for the work that we did do as opposed to the work we didn't do.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie.